What is the correlation between staff well-being and performance in a state agency? Talk to me, Rob Brady.
Mental well-being, I've now started to call it, I've started to, only in the last few weeks, calling it brain health more than anything else. So if you want your team to perform at its peak performance, you need to understand who they are, how they tick, and also care and nurture their mental well-being or brain health in the environments, the culture. And otherwise you get burnout. I mean, I've experienced it myself, like 2016, I was a sales and lettings director. I was at the height of my game to a lot of people out there, but I was driving to work every day and back and contemplate committing suicide. And
It was that bad?
yeah,
What, when you were going to Essex?
no, Regal.
When you were, wow. Didn't know that.
Mm.
Was that the first time you were at Regal or the second time?
First time, 2016.
Why is that?
We had stressful environments. I was trying to live a life greater than what I had financially. So I put a massive mask on. And
What was that? Just big house, big car, all that stuff?
just a lifestyle of what I was trying to do. Not necessarily a big house, but just lifestyle. And then I was quite lost as a person, very lonely.
But you had Charlotte.
Yeah, but still very lonely. That's what happens.
Is that because both of you worked in the bit? Would it have been different if you'd worked in two different businesses?
Probably not, because at the time I recognised I should have been seeing a counsellor and seeking professional help.
So you were aware there was a problem, but you didn't know what
I actually at the time thought mental health was a sign of weakness, and I was actually struggling myself, such an inner conflict. And then February 2016, my best mate killed himself. And that has been a journey for the last 7 years I've been going on.
Was there an element of guilt that you didn't spot that?
100%. I knew.
But that wasn't on you.
No, and I've come to acceptance of that. I was going in my own. I had my own struggles, and I was silent with it. I was contemplating pretty much every day, smashing my car into a barrier on the way home, and I was quite.
This is after your friend had committed suicide.
Before he saved me.
So by him committing suicide, it was a shock to the system.
Yeah. And I saw the devastation around it, and there was things that happened with his family that started my steps of the journey of understanding who I was, my mental health, my healing, and also brain health, how I talk to myself, how I think about my things. And that's where I got into my coaching, how I met Kel, all sorts of stuff. But in that journey of that, I've started to really craft and understand, especially with dealing with a lot of agents and speaking to a lot of agents in different environments and dealing with a lot of leaders, that you can't have peak performance. So if you look at it, something I learned the other day was, if you look at your body and your brain, your body, your hardware, and your mindset is your software. So like, if you want peak performance, you've got to have a good running software. You've got to have the top performing software out there. But if your hardware ain't right, then it's not going to get you anywhere. So if you are in estate agency environments where it's high stress constantly with no downturn.
And let's be honest, it is a stressful job because people are shouting it all the time. Sales coming through, and lettings is always people picking up the phone with problems.
Yeah. That leads then to chronic stress and anxiety, and that's where that loop starts to happen, and it actually changes your brain.
And that was that the loop that you were in?
Yeah,
because you had hundreds and hundreds of landlords and tenants
and personal stuff as well. I'd experienced some deaths before that I was trying to help people with. I was trying to be that white knight. I soon to learn it was not the right thing to do.
Were you trying to help? You were trying to help people with their mask and not put your own out? air supply on yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot to thank for your friend committing suicide by actually just basically slapping you around the face, proverbially, and actually saying, "Shit, mate, you could be that could have been you."
Yeah. And that sort of led me into this whole route of looking at past environments where I am now, and actually doing a lot of research and obviously going into the coaching and the learning around the correlation between the two.
Can you see, you come across an awful lot of estate agents. Can you see an awful lot of agents suffering?
Yeah.
What are the common things that they suffer from?
I think sometimes you get a lot of them suffer with anxiety.
About what?
Well, if you're in environments of chronic stress and it causes chronic stress over and over again, it turns into anxiety. And if you don't know how to deal with that anxiety, then it just continues, stays in a loop. In actual studies, they do say that you can actually stop the off button for that. So you have a continuous loop going in your head. So you're never gonna, you might have some things to help you with your anxiety, but until you go and see a counsellor or see a therapist and actually have professional help, that's always going to be there. It's going to be in a constant cycle. And so I think a massive part is recognising staff well-being, and it's not a case of like a bit like we used to have with the first aid. It's we've got a poster on the wall. I'm here for you. It's making sure that you do have staff that have downtime as well, and actually you allow that part to it, and you bring into their one-to-ones about who they are as an individual and what I see you for the first time.
I would doubt many agents watching this have one-to-ones with their bosses.
If
Or it's just a superficial, let's go through your figures.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the things some of the clients I've started to work with and do is they have a thing called the Wheel of Life, which we all heard of. Rate yourself on 8 metrics: fun, health, finances, family, etc. Spiritualness, not necessarily from a religious part to it, but spiritualness and how you see in the world. And bringing that into a one-to-one environment, fill out your Wheel of Life, right? You soon start to realise why your staff members struggling, why they're not performing, and what might be happening behind closed doors, and having those different conversations. And also the biggest thing which I say is stop asking your staff and just accepting okay as a response in your office. Like I said to when we got in the car, I said to you, how are you getting on? You said, I'm good. And what did I say to you?
You asked it what marks out of 10.
Yeah. How did that change?
It made me think.
Yeah. And you say having those conversations within your teams.
And then you listened to my reply, and then you were interested what I had to say.
Yeah. If you just said I'm okay, like you did, you're okay at 3 and you're okay at 7, it's still okay. I say if you bring those mindfulness things into your teams, first thing is huge amounts of studies that they actually do is not based on the financial part within a agency or any business. It's not about your salary. It's about you see me as an individual. I'm heard. I'm listened to. I'm validated in my 8 hours I give to you each day.
That's more important. I mean, I do agree with you. I've read books about this, but there's going to be estate agents out there that think you're talking twaddle.
So I'll give you a great example. If they're on the Wheel of Life and they've got 10 as fun, but their financial side is 4, and you're having a conversation, the fact that they're blowing their money in correct places and the reason why they need more money is a salary, that's a whole different conversation you're having than someone saying, I need a salary increase. Because then all of a sudden you're putting some part to ownership part back to them on how you can support them as an employer.
By the sounds of it, what you're saying is that you as the boss should almost be a leader or tribal leader to guide and support them on your team on their journey.
A mentor, which it should be the case of it. And and there is parts to that. So if you've got someone which I'd say on mental wellbeing spectrum that are really struggling and conflicting, and that's happening on a daily basis, then it's a case of actively trying to encourage them to take the step of seeing someone professional. But if you've got teams where you're trying to build them up and you're putting that in place and that Wheel of Life and that part to it, and they're having a balanced life, will naturally bring in a balanced work life, which will naturally bring in more peak performance. And come back to originally, like
they're more likely to stay. They're more likely to stay and perform better.
Take levels a little bit more stress on, but then you have the processes in place to manage that.
And the original question was, what was the link between mental well-being or brain health and performance? Is get that one right and the performance follows.
100%.
How do people find out more information about this?
There's loads of information out there. Like, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy just to give people a starting guidance. Someone like Simon Sinek out there is a great person to look into about this. He's got some amazing videos, but the first part is going, we all experienced during COVID mental health problems. The first thing you need to look at is, one of the key things I learned years ago, it was the day after Chris passed, I did a firewalk for a local charity and I had to turn up to it. And the guy who's running it lost his son. So he does a thing called Time for Change, and he helps people through firework thinking differently in their headspace. And he said, right, everyone, put your hand up if you talk to yourself. Half the people, 75% of the room put their hand up. He said, the other people who didn't put their hand up, you're fucking lying. He said, because I asked you a question, you didn't respond openly, you thought about it in your head, so you do talk to yourself, and then you chose not to respond. What I learned from that was actually that people talk to themselves.
Yeah.
So if you turn around and say you don't talk to yourself, then you're lying because you're having those conversations. So the first part is identifying that there is a mental health continuum spectrum model out there. You can look it up. It's called mental health continuum model, and you have red, amber, yellow, and green. So you might be running at green, being where you said earlier you were 7 or 8, and I might be running at a yellow. Someone else might be running at a red. But we all have brain health or mental health well-being. So there's not yes or no. You have it, I don't have it. So when you look in your environments, if you bring it into, first things to do is bring into your environments that we're supporting mental well-being or brain health amongst all our staff. The people who we can identify that are the greens and yellows. The ones that are yellows, what can we get back to green? The people who are struggling, we need to seek professional help. But that will start to, the first bit is recognising that everyone in the room in your company has some form of mental health. And your job as a leader is to support that, because they are committing their own time and life to making you money.
That's the crux of it, isn't it? Is that they're spending most of their living day.
Their trade-off is their life to earn your company money.
So you owe it to them to make sure that their brain health. I like that.
Yeah.
That phrase.
But also at the same time, you think about it, if you do that, like if you look at it from a terminology of like a house, like if your foundations, and you've got subsidence, and you want to put an extension on the roof, right, ain't going to happen. So like you're never going to be able to grow or become the agency you want to do unless you have these key factors: environments, brain health, like different parts, assets, core values, your mission, your value. That's what brings peak performance combined with mental well-being.
Rob, thank you for your time today. Absolutely amazing.
Thanks.